So yes, good afternoon to everyone who's joining us. Some of you might be sitting there having your lunch while you listen. That's great. And others might be just starting your day or haven't started your day yet. But thanks for joining us for our final webinar of 2022. So this one's about preparing for the holidays. Some of you've probably already started preparing for the holidays a little bit. If you're a serial planner like myself, you have already started, but some of you may not have even thought about it yet, so that's fine too. And we're going to do a poll about that here in just a minute, but we'll do that after I give the latest cost of living update, because unfortunately, even though it's supposed to be a happy time and the holidays are around the corner, the cost of living crisis still continues. So I want to do our usual update on that, and then we'll dive into today's content. So let's just remind ourselves of where we are and what's happened since 6 weeks or so ago, since we had our last webinar. It seems like, things happen very quickly, economies, prime ministers, and the rest. So we've had a few changes, and some of you may also be wondering, and a couple of the changes I'm going to talk about today might hinge on the budget a little bit. You might have heard 2 weeks ago we had a new budget which had a whole bunch of things that are going to change, and some of that hasn't been completely defined in terms of what that means to us all as consumers. Feel free to ask any questions that you may have, but there might be some that I don't have a good answer for you. And you'll see here on the slide on the 6th of April is the new budget. And when it comes in, so sometime in March, we're going to come back to you with one of these webinars where we can dive a bit deeper into that and tell you what we know at that point. But where are we with energy? So we know the price cap still is in place for the average family, £2,500 per year. For some families, that's more, some families, that's less. The government has told us that that is going to rise to £3,000. So that means for most people, you're going to see another increase in your energy bills. So that will happen April of next year. And the other thing that's going to happen at the same time, some of you may be benefiting now from the government help, the 66 or 67 pounds a month that you're getting as a credit to your energy bill. That will also stop at the end of March and will become only available to people on means-tested benefits. And what does means-tested benefit mean? That means a benefit like universal credit, or what would have been called things like job seekers allowance in the past, or pension credit for pensioners who don't have enough money saved in their own personal pensions or below the state pension level. So what that means for most of us probably here is that we're not going to get any help anymore, right? So for those of you who are working every day and earning over 15,000 pounds, for most of us we probably won't be getting any more government support. And so we need to prepare for that. One of the things, just to remind you, I said this during our last webinar, but if you didn't do it, it might be now a good time to do it. If you can afford to pay the energy bill that you've got, and you've had your direct debit changed by your energy supplier and they've reduced it by £66, if you can afford to pay the full amount, you might want to go back to your supplier and ask them to put it back to the original amount, which they can and will do. In most cases, you can do that online to help you build a buffer to maybe offset some of the pain that is to come in April. So again, only if you can afford it, but if it's possible, then maybe that price increase won't hit you as hard as it will others. So it's coming. Interest rates continue to go up. They will probably continue to go up for a bit longer now. So remember, every 6 weeks, the Bank of England is meeting to review interest rates. The last jump was a big jump. We're now up to 3%. So that's the base rate. So remember that a lot of products, whether that's credit cards or mortgages, are tied to that base rate. So if you had a mortgage that was, base plus 1%, that would mean that your mortgage is now at 4%. Right, so if it's base plus 1%, it's at 4%. Or if you had a credit card that was tied to the base rate and you had a 19% interest rate, you're now going to have a 19.75% interest rate, and even maybe a little bit more, because unfortunately banks and lenders use, every time that the rates go up, they use that as another way to raise rates in general, because they're allowed to raise to recover other costs and do things, costs of funds. It's costing them more money to lend to you, therefore they pass that on. So you might be sitting there thinking, but my interest rate on my credit card went from 19 to 21, even though Erik said that it only went up 0.75. That's why they can sometimes raise it a bit higher. So just be wary of those things. They're happening. And lastly, inflation is now at 11.1%. So that's the October number. And we expect that number to continue to go up slightly, mostly driven by costs of like food, which I'm sure all of you are complaining every time you leave the supermarket about the price of anything. I know I'm complaining every week when I go. It's just shocking, especially meat and vegetables, right? It's just, unfortunately, that's, we are dependent on a lot of countries. We don't grow a lot of stuff in this country, especially those of us that want, oranges in December. We can't grow oranges in the UK in December, so those have to be shipped in. The cost of shipping, all of that is leading to higher bills. So 11.1% expected to go higher for the foreseeable. So, okay, enough doom and gloom. Let's move on to something more positive and talk about holidays. So, Hattie, shall we do our poll?
Yeah, let's start with the poll. Cool. So I'm going to launch a poll now, which I'd love you guys to jump on and answer. And the question is, how prepared are you right now for the holidays? And there's lots of options there. There's, I'm all done, everything's sorted, got everything ready. Just started is one of the options. Started thinking about it, haven't thought about it, or you're just like, oh my God, is it December already? Seeing lots of answers coming in. A lot of, I've started, but I've not finished, which is good. Got a couple of people who are all done, which is very impressive. A couple of
that
people.
Is impressive. On December 1st to already be done.
Yeah. Maybe
we're going to invite those people to run our next webinar because you are the people who are most prepared.
Yeah, I'd love to know like how long that took when they started getting ready for that.
And Hattie, while people are answering the poll, did we have any questions so far that have come in that I maybe want to take one or two? Or?
So far, so if anyone has got any questions, just feel free to chuck them in the Q&A and we will get to them. Cool. So that's it's looking like people have started, but they're not quite there yet with the poll. Thanks everyone.
Hattie, I think you said you had some questions for me, didn't you? So we're going to do a slightly different format today. Yeah,
we are. I'm gonna pop to the next slide, and then I just want to ask you some of the questions that our users have had about kind of like how to budget for the holidays and things like that, because people are quite keen to get those questions answered. So I'm going to start with the first one that I had through from quite a lot of people, which was kind of along the lines of, what are your top tips, Erik, about budgeting for the holidays? Like, is there anything you would do and things like that?
Okay, cool. Yeah, so a few things that I would suggest, and these, will depend on how many people you need to buy for. Do you need to buy it all? It's important at this point to also think about reflecting on the customs within your own family or friend groups. We have these long established traditions that, some families will say, oh, well, we only buy for children and we don't buy for adults, right? Or all of my friends, we get together and we all spend a maximum of £20 per person, or, different things. So I think it's first really important to spend a minute reflecting on those, but also reflect on, can you challenge some of those, right? So you might be in a family where it's just always been a thing that, you go all out and you buy every person in your family a gift and every person in your family buys you a gift. Actually, when you think about how much money you're spending and they're spending, you realize, wow, that's quite a bit. So maybe it's worth having that conversation with family members and saying, you know what, this year, let's just focus on buying for the children, or let's set a maximum budget of £25 a person, £50 a person, whatever's affordable. And sometimes those conversations can be quite difficult to have, and you might feel like, oh, I don't want to seem like I'm the cheap one, and I don't want to be the one who's saying, oh, let's spend less this year. But actually, given what I just told you about the cost of living, this is probably the best year ever for you to have an opportunity to start that conversation, because we're all feeling the pain. Now, we will all be feeling the pain at different levels, depending on what we buy and how much we earn and all of those. But it's one of those few times in life where we've got a little bit more equality than normal, because we're all feeling the pain of the cost of living. So it's a great conversation starter and say, hey guys, why don't we think about setting a different budget? What else can you do? Review your own budget. See what you can actually afford. Even if you're not a serial budgeter, if you don't sit there every month doing a budget, just do a quick one, even, piece of paper, quick Excel sheet, whatever works for you, just so you can get an idea of what can you afford to spend. And if you're not able to afford it, then what are you going to do in terms of, if you choose to use credit, making sure that you use credit wisely and that those are considered purchases and that you don't find yourself just out shopping one day and then in January with your head in your hands looking at your credit card bill thinking, wow, I've really overspent. Check the deals and offers that are available out there. There are lots of offers. Some of them are very good. Some of them are complete rubbish. Right, some of them are, prices were raised artificially so that they could then give you a discount. The other thing I would say, and I know this sounds a bit bad, but the economic downturn we're seeing has actually sparked a lot of companies to go out of business. And there are a number of companies out there that are going out of business sales and different things. So, seek those out. Use the news as your friend for once and find out, okay, this company's going out of business. Let me go down there and see if I can, get a good deal. Now, I realize you may not be in the market for furniture, but some of you will know the brand made.com. And I realized yesterday that they're going out of business. I mean, I heard that before, but I realized yesterday they're having a sale. And I was on their website last night. They're auctioning all of their furniture that they have in their warehouse. And they had, 600 and 700 pound pieces of furniture for 200 pounds. So if you were, for instance, trying to furnish a flat maybe that you just moved into, or, maybe you and your partner want to buy something for the house instead of getting, a gift for each other or something, use that to your advantage. Go and bid on one of those things. That's considerable savings. That's a good deal, right? It's a shame that, they're going out of business, but you can't change that. So you might as well reap the benefit. Make a list, please. Please just make a list, right? I think that's a good behavior anyway. Whether you're going to the supermarket every week or you're buying gifts for friends and family, just make a list. Otherwise, you get really tempted, don't you? You're standing in the shop and you're like, oh, okay, I'll just add that on, or I'll just add that on. So know what you want to get. And then also, don't be afraid of charity shops, right? Recycling, regifting. I don't know how about you, but I've got a few gifts in my house that I've gotten over the years that I've never touched and that I could wrap up and easily give to someone else. You could do that. Charity shops, depending on where you live, especially, you can have some really good stuff, right? The number of times I walk into the charity shop and the stuff still has the original tag on it. We sometimes discount them because we see them there on the high street. We think, oh, I wouldn't want to buy my Christmas gift for a friend there. But actually, you can get some brand new stuff in there, a really good deal. And you're usually helping a good cause, right? You might be helping cancer research or, homeless shelters or whatever it might be. There's, lots of good things to happen there. So that's a few of the things that I would do. And the final point is, some of you who might be into loyalty point schemes like Tesco Club Card or Nectar or Boots Advantage Points or those things. Now, what I don't want you to do is run out and buy stuff from those companies just to get more points. That's usually a bad deal. But what is a good deal is if you've accrued those points because every week you shop at, let's say, Tesco anyway, and you've now accumulated 10,000 Club Card points, use those for some of the gift buying, or if not the gift buying, then maybe use some of those points to finance the food that you need to buy for, holiday meals and those types of things. Now's a great time to use those points because, sometimes you're kind of like, well, when am I going to ever use these points? Now's the time. Hopefully that's helpful. Hattie, back to you. What else do people want to know?
So we've got a few questions that have come in, but I'm just going to say at the end, and I'm going to start with the list.
Cool.
We will come back to them. Thanks, everyone. Keep sending them in. The other question that was quite popular was about ways that our wage stream members can enjoy Christmas and the holidays without breaking the bank. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do have a few thoughts. Yeah, this is a tough one, especially for those of you who are near, a city center. It can always be really tempting, whether that's work colleagues wanting to go ice skating or going for drinks and those things. All of that can get really expensive. I don't even know what it costs this year to go ice skating, but every year it seems to go up. It's never cheap, right? Everybody wants to go and do these things, or go to Winter Wonderland for those of you that are based in London, and you end up spending, tons to get in there or whatever. And you might have other things where you are. You don't have to do that, right? There are usually lots of free events going on, whether that's Christmas markets that are popping up in different cities where you can just kind of go walk around, absorb some of the atmosphere, maybe have a bit of food, a bit of drink, but it doesn't have to break the bank. Churches are often doing loads of different Christmas programs and socials and things. Again, usually not needing to pay. Lots of museums, art galleries, those kinds of places that may already be free anyway to get in will often have special things going on, special events going on for the holidays. So that might be worth looking at. Local schools are inevitably putting on, plays and doing programs and those kinds of things. I know like all the schools near us are also selling Christmas trees and those kind of things, and they tend to be cheaper than some of the places that you can find them. And you're also then helping the school. So just really being aware of what's going on in your local area. Obviously on social media and on TV or on the radio, you're going to be hearing about all the national stuff that's being advertised, but all those local programs, they don't get a lot of airtime, do they? But so if you do a bit of research, checking local sources of media or those local free papers that often exist that we probably walk by and never pick up, grab one next time you're out and you'll probably find a whole list of things happening in your local area. So think about that. The other thing is, and this kind of relates back to the last point as well, consider not just buying stuff for people, think about experiences. So if you think about like maybe you've got a niece or a nephew or a younger sibling or something, and you would normally buy them a gift, maybe actually go pick them up for the afternoon and go to the Christmas market and do something like that. You'll probably find that, one, the gift that you buy them, the toy or whatever, they're not going to play with for very long anyway, right? Can also be helping the environment. And then also just, they'll probably remember that afternoon that they spent with you at the Christmas market or doing something more than they will remember, the toy, 6 months from now or 12 months from now. So really think about that. And finally on this one, and I know it's really early for me to say this, but prepare for next year, right? So you might feel a little bit like you're on the back foot for this year because it is the 1st of December. And if you haven't started thinking about at least the budgeting element, you may not be able to make tons of changes. But think about for next year and start thinking now how much you might want to put away. Create a space in your app or in the wage stream app or in any of the banks that you use where you just now start thinking, you know what, I'm going to put 15 or 20 quid away every month now to be my Christmas fund for next year. It's never too early to start. So.
That's really helpful. Thank you, Eric. And then if someone or anyone who uses WageStream is feeling the pinch this year when it comes to the holidays and Christmas time, what help is available for them and support?
Yeah, unfortunately, this time, for all of us that are sitting here thinking about, all the fun we can have and the friends we see, or, maybe friends that you don't see all year who then come home because, around Christmas, really happy time for a lot of people. Christmas, the holidays in general, can also be a time for people that isn't that happy, right? So, maybe this year, or especially coming out of the back of COVID, you have family members that, you lost to COVID or to other reasons. Maybe you can't afford to have the Christmas that you want this year, or people in your family have lost jobs, or the energy bills or the mortgage has gone up to a point where it's really going to impact. I think it's important for all of us to really think about those people. And the first thing I would say is all of us can play a part in thinking about when we're organizing group activities. And this often happens, in an office or in any workplace where it's like, oh yeah, let's all go out and do this after work. And sometimes we don't give a lot of thought to where we're going, but making sure that we are planning events that are accessible to everyone, right? So, not going to an event that's going to cost everybody £45 to get into, because not everybody can afford £45. So I think we all have a part to play in that. The other thing I would say is, if you're struggling with, your mental health at this time of year, or bereavement or any of that, that you're turning into looking at your organizations. Many of the companies we work with provide employee assistance programs to people, right? So being aware of the employee benefits that you have access to and not being afraid to use those. Talk to somebody. If you don't have access to that, if your employer doesn't provide it, there are plenty of organizations like Mind, which is a mental health charity out there, Samaritans, other organizations that can help you with those things. Some of you might really be struggling in terms of Christmas, or may have family members that are struggling in terms of, even your Christmas meal. Most food banks provide some level of support for specifically for Christmas, and actually they provide some really nice Christmas meals. So you might want to be suggesting to your family members that they register for those services so that they can get, at least something. And often, not only will they provide a Christmas meal, but they'll also provide some gifts if there are small children in the house. They'll provide food for pets if that's becoming a challenge. So really becoming aware of food banks in your area. For those of you who might be struggling with heating, I know a lot of communities are setting up what are called warming banks now, or warm banks, so that you can either go there if it's cold on specific times. Some of them are offering vouchers for you to use to pay for your energy. So again, just being really aware locally what's going on. Those tend to be very local programs. I can't give you a directory of here are all the warming banks in the UK, and that doesn't exist yet. So being aware. And then of course, and I always mention it, but I'll mention it again, this can be a stressful time in terms of money. And maybe you already did all your Christmas shopping in November and you were really on top of it, but you actually spent more than you intended to, and you're now kind of worried about when that bill lands next month, or when Klarna comes knocking in January looking for their money from all the gifts that you bought. If that is something you're worried about, now's a great time for you to get in touch with the likes of Step Change or another money advice organization. And remember, for those of you who are using the WageStream app, you can access Step Change directly in the app in the Coach tab. You can answer a few short questions, and they can connect you. The app will connect you with a debt advisor or a money advisor, so that you can get ahead of these things. We don't want you to be spending your Christmas losing sleep and stressing over money issues. There is help out there. If you don't want to use Step Change or don't want to use the app, Citizens Advice, National Debt Line, there are other options out there. But whatever you do, make sure you talk to somebody about it.
Thanks, Eric. That's really, really, really helpful. We've had quite a few questions in, so I'm just going to jump straight to those.
Let's go for it.
That's okay. And there's still a few minutes left if anyone wants to pop their questions in the chat. Just a quick one about, well, there's been a few in about food banks and warm banks. And do you know any more about, do people need to apply? Can they just turn up? How can they find them in their local area? Could you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Great question. So two things. First thing is finding the food and warm banks. The most likely you can go to your local authority or your council's website and they will have them listed there. I think most councils now have a cost of living page and they're usually included there, so it's worth checking. Most food banks are run by an organization called Trussell Trust, which is a faith-based organization. And you can search their website, put your postcode in for a local one. You do not need to be religious or belong to a church or anything, even though a lot of the food banks will physically be located in a church or near a church. You do not need to belong to that church. There's also another site, I think I've talked about it a couple of times on various webinars, called Banquet. So Bankuet. Bankuet. That's actually a site that's used for giving money and donating money to food banks. But forget about that for a second. It's also a good way to go in and put in your postcode and find all of the food banks in the country, not just the Trussell Trust one. So it's kind of a complete directory, and that will show you where they are. Now, most food banks and warm banks require you to have a voucher to access them. So you can't just waltz in and say, hey, I'm here, I need some food. Now, if you do that, some of them will be able to give you like a 24-hour food parcel to help you. And then they will usually signpost you to a local organization so that you can get the voucher and officially come back. Vouchers can be given out by the council, by debt advice agencies, by advice agencies like Citizens Advice. Sometimes GPs will do them. Really depends on your local community who the voucher holders are. But if you're not sure about how to access it, then definitely go or call your food bank and they will be able to tell you the easiest way to get a voucher. Some of them that are a bit more progressive will have services additional to just food sitting there, so that often you can walk in and say I need food, but okay, they'll immediately get you to talk to a benefits support worker from Department of Work and Pensions. That person can help you with some of the benefits and they can write you a voucher. Then and there you can turn around and get your food parcel or access to the warm bank or whatever it might be. So again, it'll vary slightly by community.
Thank you, Eric. That was really useful. Just a couple more we've got time for, I think.
Okay.
Someone's mentioned a service called Utility Warehouse where you can sort of bundle your utilities and you get cash back with it. They want to, have you heard of it? And then I'm guessing like if you'd recommend it or if you'd recommend anything else.
Okay, I have heard of it. I don't usually recommend any kind of single product or service. What I would say is just with all services is be skeptical, be careful, especially when it's bundled services, whether that's a bundled utility service or a bundled bank account, or you just need to be aware of what you're paying for the component parts, right? So Utility Warehouse now, like every other organization, is passing on really high energy prices. So I think what a lot of them now try to do is lighten that blow by saying, oh, well, we can also throw in broadband for, you know, this much more, or we can throw in, you know, mobile service for this much more. Just make sure you do your homework and go and check what those services would cost individually. And you can use a site for like Uswitch to do that. And it might very well be a good deal. Sometimes there are promotional deals to be had. But I need you to take a minute and read the fine print, please, because also a lot of these will be introductory offers. And when you read the fine print, you will see that you're going to get cash back or a lower rate or whatever it is for a number of months. And then at some point, it's going to go up. If that's okay with you, that's fine. If you then also make sure to, you know, in 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, whenever it's up, that you go and do that kind of comparison shopping again, that's fine. But just be really aware, you know, bundled products of any kind are often not as good a deal as they appear.
Thank you, Eric. That's really useful. I think we've got time just for one more. So I'm going to go for one that's been quite popular in the chat, which is you did mention that you can get onto the Step Change website through WageStream. Is there anything else in the WageStream app that people can use to maybe help them out at this time of year? Anything you'd recommend people looking at?
Yeah, a couple of things. I think and again, we've talked about this one before, our Invest Benefits Checker. Again, there's kind of this assumption that, oh, I go to work every day, therefore I won't be eligible for any benefits. That's just not the case. There are loads of in-work benefits and then other benefits out there. So I always suggest that people, you know, go in, put their information. Again, that's accessible via the Coach tab. Put in your details. It will show you what you are potentially eligible for. And also because government programs are constantly changing and they will change significantly next year, so in April. So you might want to check now, and then if nothing's happening or you're not eligible for anything now, you might want to put a reminder in your diary or something to check back after April the 6th when the new tax year starts, and go and check that. The other thing you can check, and it's not in the app unfortunately, but I still would suggest it, is a site called Turn to Us. So that's Turn, the number 2, and Us. They have two tools that you can use. One is a benefits checker. That's largely the same as what you will do with Invest in the app, so up to you which one you want to use. But they have a grants checker, and the grants checker is really important and really useful because, again, there are lots of local grant programs that we will never know about, you know, depending on where you live. But you can put in your postcode and answer a few questions, and it will tell you if there are grants that are available. There are also all kinds of funny grants out there, stuff you wouldn't think about, right? So if you work for, you know, a grocery chain, you know, there are specific grants for people who work in that world. There are, you know, specific grants for people who work in retail. There are specific grants for people who work in aviation. You know, so go and have a look at those things, and you know, you'll be surprised at the stuff that's out there. And the stat we always tell people, and I think it's just worth repeating: 16 billion pounds of unclaimed benefits every year in this country. We're also looking at a government that's under pressure to reduce costs, given everything that's going on. If you don't use the benefits money, we will lose the benefits money, right? Because like any organization, they're going to say, oh, well, all these people didn't claim all these benefits. Well, then we'll just reallocate that to something else. So please make sure, check what you're eligible for, apply, get that money as soon as you can.